Hey, what's up? Justin here, and welcome back to 65 Drums. Today I'm going to be showing you a bunch of different electronic drum sets that I recently got a chance to play at Sweetwater Gearfest. Now, if you're not from the United States, you might not have heard of Sweetwater. It's a really big online music retailer based out of Indiana. What they do is throw up a bunch of different circus tents in their parking lots, and every single tent is a different brand. So Roland has their own tent where they show off all the different drum sets. Every single company, whether or not it's drums, whether or not it's guitars, it's a humongous festival full of instruments. It's basically like an outdoor miniature NAMM event. There's also a lot of free clinics. I went to one a couple years ago where they're showing different miking techniques. There's a lot of famous musicians that attend and stuff. Because this trip was last minute, I totally forgot the event was even happening. I didn't get a chance to order my new recording interface yet, so there are no legit audio recordings in this video. I'm going to be going over the specs and what I thought about each of these drum sets. There is video, but no recordings from the drum module itself. So if you're okay with that, let's begin. So I gotta start off by talking about the one drum set I've been hunting down for a full year now. I keep seeing it, but I haven't gotten a chance to play it until now. That's the Pearl Emerge. They've been advertising this kit as if it was already available to purchase in like magazines and websites for about a year now, but really it's just been on pre-order. You'll finally be able to order one this fall. That's when it's actually coming out. And since I got a chance to play it, here are my thoughts about it. Let's talk about the rebound first. The playing surface is really nice. The rebound is incredibly low. Mesh heads have a tendency to be really bouncy unless you get a very thick one-ply mesh head, such as the Drum Tech, whatever you call it, Pro series. Or if you get something that's 3-ply that's also kind of acoustic level bounce, such as the Drum Tech Real Feel or different offerings from other companies. I think this might be the lowest rebound mesh head I've ever played in my life. The mesh is only one layer, just one component of the whole setup. There's the mesh, and then underneath that, there's other materials that all combine to give the drum its feel. It's got a very solid feel, and I just loved playing on this. Very fun to play on. Now, because I was at a demo tent, and I only got a chance to play this drum set for a limited amount of time, I didn't get a chance to take apart the drum and see all the different sensors and layers and components there. But apparently Pearl has partnered with Korg in order to take their triggering technology from the Korg Wave Drum, that hand percussion pad. They're taking that and putting it inside an acoustic drum shell and making it into an electronic drum set. So one thing that I've noticed about Pearl is that they're not shy about working with other companies to make a product. So for example, if you go back to like the Pearl ePro Live, they worked with Smart Trigger to make their electronic metal cymbals. And then they also worked with Stephen Slate Drums to make the Pearl Mimic Pro drum module. And now they're working with Korg to make this drum set. Now, as far as what that wave drum technology does for you in this electronic drum set form, it kind of just picks up your playing incredibly well and translates it to the drum module, and you get a good sound out of it. It also seems to incorporate a microphone of some kind, and it seems to blend the audio of your stick attack in real time with the samples being played back from the drum module. I don't really know all of how this works. They're a little bit vague about it, but they're saying there is some sort of audio being, taken from your real drumming and then blended with the samples. So while I was playing the drum set, I saw that there was a little triangle jutting out from the top left corner of the snare, even though snares don't have corners. I was wondering if that was like a branding badge or if it was a sensor of some kind, because if all the toms and the snare use wave drum technology, shouldn't they all kind of look identical? But apparently the snare is a completely different animal. It seems to have, different sensors or more sensors or something. It actually takes 2 cables. If you look at the left side of the snare, you'll see that there's 2 cable inputs running to the drum module. So another interesting thing is that the rim zone only covers the top half of the drums, and it's covered by a small, thin piece of foam for some reason. And I was getting a really clean cross-stick performance with this overall setup, and when you hit the bottom rim piece, you're just going to get a rim shot, whether or not that's on the toms or the snare. So moving on to the cymbals, they were pretty thin, which I really liked, and also they have some of the hardest rubber that I've tried on a rubber cymbal recently. It kind of makes sense though, because it's supposed to be emulating B20 bronze, and this is especially notable near the bell, because a lot of electronic cymbals, the bell zone has a thick layer of rubber on it, making it feel a little bit mushy. This whole cymbal just seems a little bit stiffer than other electronic cymbals on the market. I don't want to say too much about the cymbals though, because these are prototypes and they said they were actually going to be switching them out to new models in a little bit. And of course, touching on the way the cymbals look for a second, I'm a fan of the red accents. I think it adds a slight futuristic touch. I'm not really a fan of the big chrome wedge that they put there. I think some people like it and some people don't. I don't think that this is ruining the look of the drum set. I've actually kind of gotten used to the way it looks, but I feel like electronic drum companies need to learn this, that if you're going to make something that looks like an acoustic drum set, go all the way. They always add one little thing to make you know it's electronic. When obviously, if we're buying a big electronic drum set, we want it to look acoustic. Now switching over to the drum module, it looks kind of unassuming from a distance. like it could be at home on a $1,000 drum set, such as the TD-17. But the sounds inside of this module, even though the module isn't very fancy, the sounds inside are better than the majority of modules out there on the market right now. It's kind of a shame that it doesn't work with anything except these pads, but it is one of the better sounding drum modules. I enjoyed most of the kits I tried out, and the detail of the drums and cymbals was pretty good. I also just plain liked the samples they chose to include, and it also has room for 3 more pads, 8 direct outs, and 2 master outs and MIDI outs, and of course an aux in, headphone jack, and all this stuff. Now, sound is a very subjective thing, so you may not like the sounds. I personally like the sounds. I will be able to get a chance to do a legit recording later on this year. I should probably stress that this is a prototype. It wasn't completely finished. They're still tweaking things. It's in a much more polished state than another prototype that I've played recently that gave a line of drum sets. Those kits were really far from being finished. This is a lot closer to being finished with a few rough edges. One of the cymbals, one of the zones was dead for some reason. Also the hi-hat, I had to press really, really hard on the hi-hat in order to get it to have the close sound. That could have been an adjustment inside of the module. There's always little things that go wrong at these public events and stuff like that. But still, I'm really interested to play this when it finally comes out in its finished form. You can buy this drum set in 2 different versions. One has the 18-inch kick drum for $4,200. That's the version that you see in all the different photos. The second one is just $4,000 and comes with a kick drum pad instead. It's a pretty unique looking kick drum pad with a playing surface that reminds me of like a living room couch material. It's like a cushiony, really nice feeling material. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to use this because they only set up the demo for the one with the 18-inch kick drum, because everyone knows that's the cooler looking one, and that's the one that most people are looking to buy. So I really enjoy this drum set, but I'm kind of wondering whether or not this is the right pricing strategy for Pearl. They're going up against some really popular companies when you go for $4,000. You're going up against a Roland TD-25 KVX for $4,000. I really like that drum set. I think it's awesome, but even I think that drum set's overpriced. You also have the ATV line. There's a version of that kit with their module with only 2 toms. You can buy that for $500 less. And that's not even mentioning other companies like Drum Tech, which gets tons of people in this price range. Tons of people buy Joe Becky drum sets, Diamond, Stealth drums. You got Field, you got other drum set manufacturers that are going for this price range. Basically, in my opinion, they should have tried to undercut Roland by $200, $500. That's just my opinion. But I'm gonna hold all judgment until I actually play the finished version and see how good it really is. I'm really looking forward to play this drum set. I've got a positive impression of it so far though. Okay, so moving on to the next company, let's talk about Yamaha. So the last thing that they made was around a year ago. They came out with a brand new beginner drum set. So that gives me a suspicion that maybe they're working to replace their DTX 502 line, or maybe even some of the higher drum sets. The problem is, a new drum set takes 3 years of R&D. I'm not just making up that number. I was actually told that by a number of different companies. It takes a while to come out with a new electronic drum set. So I have suspicions that maybe they're working on new stuff, but as of right now, they don't have any new drum sets. They did just release a brand new drum amp. It's not really that powerful, but it's only $300. You get 2 20-watt monitors and then also a subwoofer, and this attaches to your drum rack. It's a nice little setup. I'm glad more companies are coming out with drum amps, because until about a year ago, we had a drought. No one was coming out with new drum amps. In fact, some companies were removing the drum amps they did have from online stores. There just wasn't that great of a selection. But now we've had the new Roland amps, and now we have this new Yamaha amp, and I hope to see it someday so I can actually hear what it sounds like. Unfortunately, they didn't show it off inside their tent. Okay, so jumping ahead, let's talk about what was inside the ATV booth. Now, there isn't a ton of new stuff, but there's a couple of things. The first is that the ATV A-Frame, their hand percussion handheld product, seems to be getting some new presets or new sounds that are coming out fairly soon, and I actually got a chance to hear some of them. They sounded freaking sweet. It's one of the most powerful hand percussion instruments in the entire industry. Also got to look at some of the smaller splash cymbals that they have. We play splash cymbals differently on acoustic sets than crash cymbals, so that's why it's good to have different size cymbals on your electronic set. And also, I got to see a bit more of a polished version of the ATV app they've been working on. It's coming out this fall, and it lets you adjust the volume, select different drums and cymbals with inside your kits. Basically, it's an app that lets you control the drum module. I absolutely love that they're coming out with both an iOS and Android version of this app. A lot of drum companies, they just straight up refuse to make an Android app and they stick to iOS only. That really doesn't make any sense at all, because half of all smartphones sold in the United States are Android, and if you don't make an Android phone app, half of your customers just can't use your product. So I like the app. The only downside is that you have to buy a router for this. Now they demonstrated that you don't need a fancy router. They bought one from like a resale store for $6. It doesn't need to be expensive, but you will need to set that up and learn how to do all that. That's the only downside. It's not using Bluetooth like a lot of other apps. Okay, so next, let's talk about the Alesis Dmm K2 Pro. I've been trying to play one of these for quite a while now, but no music store near me actually carries these as a showroom floor model. It's always an Alesis Strike Pro, and then an Alesis Nitro Mesh, and maybe an Alesis Surge Mesh. That's pretty much it. And the other thing about this kit is that it's kind of confusing. There have been at least 7 or more variations of this kit. I made a full video breaking down all the different variations of the Dmm, and finally, I got a chance to play this newest version. For the price, this is a giant drum set. You got the largest cymbals and the largest drums you could possibly get for this price range. And to be honest, that's the reason why people buy Alesis drum sets in the first place. But unfortunately, I kind of walked away unimpressed with this kit. There's always going to be a sacrifice when you make a humongous drum set for a tiny price tag. The pads ended up feeling kind of cheap, and the module sounds were really, really bad. When I walked away from this kit, it just kind of felt cheap to me. I put it in a factory reset state, I played the pads, I just did not connect with this kit at all, and it's really not a kit that I would personally buy, although I know some people buy it and like it. Know what you're getting into. You're getting a very large drum set for a cheap price. The sacrifices are the pads don't feel quite as premium, and also the sounds aren't that great. So this is better for VST use if you just want something really big at a low price. Okay, so next up is the Drum Brut. I came this close to buying this thing on a whim because it was $100 off and it looks freaking fantastic, and it also sounds fantastic as well. It's a drum analog synthesizer with MIDI out. It doesn't have a ton of sounds, but it has a lot of ways to shape those sounds, and I think this is more creative for DJs, but it sounds freaking sweet, and because it has that MIDI out port, I could plug a cable from my Roland TD30, basically play my drum set and control this remotely and hear the sounds from the Drum Brut. Now, of course, this whole idea is nothing new. There have been tons of drum synthesizers out there in the past and in the present. I just haven't really covered them on this channel. So at some point in the future, I will have to buy 1 or 2 of these off of eBay and just, try out some different drum synths and experiment with different electronic drum sounds. I really love hearing different styles of electronic drum sounds from the different decades and different kinds of technologies. Okay, so finally, I wanted to mention this guy. It's basically a rolling drum rack that lets you quickly switch out drum sets on stage or even transport them in trucks or whatever. It's really, really awesome from a company called Pageantry, and basically this is what it's like. This thing's awesome. How much does this cost? $11.99. And how much weight can you put on it?
How much stuff can you put on it?
So a lot more than that if you want.
Oh yeah. So this whole lifter, right now it's set up ready to roll.
Yeah.
You can drop it down.
Oh, okay. Now, so it never has to leave this.
Correct.
Nice. Yep. And that will fit a double kick pedal.
Yes. Yep. And then you can drop this.
I see.
Yeah.
So that's really good for like a hydraulic style hi-hat.
Sure, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you can do it with the remote hat, you can do it with the standard pedal, the whole thing.
Nice. And a little iPad mount.
Right.
What size is this?
The tube?
Yeah.
It's 1.5 inch, so it's made for industry standard clamps. So anything from, we're showing the Thomas clamp right now, the Pearl clamp will work.
Yeah.
The Yamaha clamp will work.
Anything that can go on a square,
Absolutely.
1.5 inches? Nice.
Depending on how it's stored, this whole lifter system can attach from the cart.
Okay.
It's like really close.
Okay, sorry the video cut out short there, but just wanted to give you a taste of different things I bumped into while I was walking around Sweetwater Gearfest. It's a really, really fun festival, and I know this video almost sounds like an advertisement for Sweetwater. It isn't. I just have a really good time every year, so maybe go to the next one and you'll meet me there. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of this whole format, and I will see you guys in a few.